Hi, I'm Beth, and this video is brought to you by Baby Lock. Wide binding can add an additional design element to your finished project. It really frames the quilt and can give you a different look. The technique I'm showing today results in a 1-inch wide binding. So first, prep your quilt top. So we have our quilted sample here, and you do need to leave a little bit of the batting and backing around the quilt top. That helps support that wider binding. So we've trimmed the batting and backing 3/4 of an inch bigger than the quilt top on all sides. The next step is to prep the binding. This is a 2.5 inch wide strip, and I've pieced it to give me enough length to go around my entire project. Since this is a single fold binding, we're just going to fold under and press one raw edge 1/4 of an inch. So I made a little handy dandy pressing template for myself. It's just a manila folder that I cut up and I added my 1/4 inch line to. That way I can just bump it up, fold it over to the line, and then press right on it. It makes it a lot easier to do the 1/4 inch fold all the way along the edge. So do that down the entire length of your binding strip. I've prepped my binding, and now it's time to attach it to the quilt top. You're going to line up the raw edge of the binding with the edge of the quilt top. And what we're doing is stitching a scant 1/4 inch seam and stopping a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the quilt top. So I'm going to put a mark there so I know where to stop stitching. And just be sure to leave some of this loose so that you can join that when you get back around to where you started. So I've set my machine up for my scant 1/4 inch, and I have my mark of where I'm going to stop sewing. Just adding a tacking stitch, and then I'm cutting the thread, and I'll pull this out from under the machine. Now I'll miter the corner. So fold the binding up so you create a diagonal here, and then fold it back down so that this fold up at the top is aligned with the batting and the backing, and the raw edge is aligned with the edge of the quilt top. Now you'll start stitching right at the top of the fold and the edge of the batting and the backing. Use your scant 1/4 inch seam and go down the entire side, stopping a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the quilt top when you get down to the bottom. When you get to your last side and you're going to join your edges, just make sure you leave a nice long tail to work with. I used an invisible join to join the binding strips and then finished stitching it to the quilt top. We have a great how-to video for an invisible join, so check below or the video description for that link. Press the binding away from the quilt top. This will help get a nice flat binding. The last step is to turn the folded edge over to the back and then hand stitch that in place. This technique is just a little bit different than a normal binding, but really adds a fresh look. The wide binding frames the quilt, and I think it would look great on a wall hanging or a table topper.